Okay, so we have the ball bouncing around on the screen now, as you recall. And now the problem is the ball isn't really hitting the paddle. The ball is just hitting the back wall and bouncing off, see? So if it misses the paddle, it still bounces. So what we need to do now is we need to try and set it up so you can lose the game by not hitting the paddle. So we're going to check if the paddle is there and then it'll bounce. And if it's not, sorry buddy, you lose. So let's take a look at our code again here. We're only going to add about 9 or 10 lines of code here to do that. We're going to make some adjustments to these if statements here in the draw function. And basically, we're just checking if the ball reaches the back wall, and then we're going to check if the ball is within the range of the paddle. If the ball's Y position is between the top of the paddle and the bottom of the paddle's position, then we'll go ahead and let the ball bounce back by adjusting the X value by a -1. And if the paddle's not there, in other words, the ball's hitting the back wall, game over, right? And we're going to send up an alert. It'll just be a pop-up that says game over. And then we need these two statements to terminate the game. Document.location.reload and clear interval. So this stops our interval from repeating here. This interval that we set down at the very bottom. Yeah. So that's it. So those lines of code should enable the ball to hit the back wall and bounce off if there's a paddle there, or pass and stop the game if there's not. So Control C, let's flip back over and paste this in. And then we'll run this and see how that works. Now, we'll do it once with the paddle is there. Boom, it did bounce off. Feedback on our video. Okay, now let's let the ball bounce off the back wall and see what happens. Boom. Okay. So game is over, and then it starts again when we close that dialog. Game is over. Okay, cool. So that's working. Gee, what should we do now? Let's show some bricks. Let's put some bricks in there. That was breakout_4.js. Let's go to the next one, breakout_5.js, and let's add some bricks. So we have a number of variables here that we need to set for the bricks. We have a brick row count and a brick column count. So we're going to have rows and columns of bricks put in there on the right-hand side for the ball to bounce off of. So we'll set, initially, let's just try it out with 5 rows and 4 columns. And we'll set a brick width of 25, so it's kind of skinny, and a brick height of 60. And then padding is the amount of space that we need around each brick. We don't want the bricks actually touching each other. This is basically the mortar between the bricks or whatever. But brick padding is 10, so that gives us 10 pixels of gap between the bricks. And brick offset top, that means space at the very top of our screen before we show our first brick on top row, and that's going to be 30 pixels. And the offset left is 400 pixels, so if we're here, 400 pixels is 2/3 of the way across the screen. So all of the bricks will be in the rightmost third of the field here. And then we set up this brick array. Bricks is going to be an array. It's actually a 2-dimensional array, rows and columns. So we set up a brick array, and then we use a for loop to populate that array with bricks. Okay, so we're going to loop through the number of columns that we have, column count, and then we're going to set brick C equal to an array. So it's a 2-dimensional array. And then after that, we need to use another for loop to populate each brick with an initial X and Y value. Now that's just obviously just going to put all the bricks in the top left corner, but when we draw the bricks, we'll fill in the right values for these. So now let's scroll down to where we're going to draw the bricks. We have a little function here that's function draw bricks, and you can see in our draw function down here, we're going to clear the screen, draw the ball, draw the paddle, and then draw the bricks. So we need a draw bricks function that can take that 2-dimensional array we have of bricks that don't have positions yet and draw them on the screen. So to do that, we're going to need a nested for loop, and we're going to iterate through the columns and through the rows, right? C is going to be a column, R for a row, and then we're going to use a brick X and a brick Y position for the top left corner of the brick. We need to calculate the X position based on which row and which column we're in, and also we're going to add in also the padding for each column and each row. So we're going to calculate that, the X and Y values of the top left corner for each brick. And then we're going to add these X and Y values into our the brick variables, the X and Y brick variables, the ones we initialized up here to 0. X and Y values basically a dictionary in the bricks array. So we're going to set those, and then we're going to begin a path. We're going to start drawing this path. We have the top left corner of the brick and an X and Y value for that. We have the brick width and brick height. We're just going to draw a rectangular. We're going to make it this color. And then we add the fill and close path. These 5 lines of code we've seen before when we draw a square or rectangle. So that's it for drawing bricks. Nothing more to it than that. Like I said, down here we have a function call to draw bricks after we draw the paddle. So let's try this code out. Let's copy that, paste that in, and click run. Now we have bricks. Check that out. So we have blue bricks. But look, there's no collision happening. The ball is not smashing into the bricks because we're not checking for the position of the ball in relation to the bricks. So that's probably the next thing we want to do is handle collisions between the ball and the bricks. We now have the paddle working just fine. It moves up and down. And the bricks are all drawn on the screen good. So we have our 30 pixels on the top here and 400 pixels on the left before we start drawing bricks. And we have 4 columns and 5 rows of bricks. So that's all working great. Yeah, let's work on handling collisions next. So let's jump out to Breakout 6 JavaScript file, and let's see how we're going to handle the collisions. First thing we're going to do in collision detection is when a brick gets hit, we need to make it disappear. So we're going to add a third variable into our bricks dictionary called visible. And we'll default it to 1, so the brick is visible. But after a brick gets hit by the ball, then the brick becomes invisible, set that to 0. We're going to have a collision detection function for the bricks to detect if there's any collisions, and I'll show you how that works in a second. And then each time we draw the ball, the paddle, the bricks, we're going to call our collision detection. So based on the new position of the ball, is it in contact with any bricks? If so, we're just going to switch those bricks to invisible. So let's look at how the collision detection function works. So we're going to iterate. We have a nested for loop. Iterate through the columns and the rows of bricks. And then we're going to, each brick, we're just going to assign it to this variable b. And then we want to check if the brick is visible, then we'll do this check. If it's not visible, just ignore. We don't care. It's already been blown up. So if the brick is visible, and if the ball is inside of the dimensions of the brick, right? We're looking at the x value and y value of the ball, which is x and y. And we need to compare that to the left and right dimensions of the brick and the top and bottom dimensions of the brick. And if so, we'll go ahead and change directions. We'll change the y, and we'll also set the brick value to invisible. So that's basically all we're going to do. If the middle of the ball is within the confines of the brick, then we change directions of the ball and set that brick to invisible. So let's try this code out. Paste our code in, we'll click run. Okay, now let's see if the brick is, yes. So now the bricks are basically disappearing after each time the ball hits it, and the ball is changing directions. We need to keep moving our paddle here. Now the game will keep going until we mess up, basically. Or we run out of bricks, and then it'll keep bouncing.